Hey folks, it's Piano Man Steve here. Thanks for tuning in and welcome to this song demonstration for Jessie by Joshua Kadison. A pretty good size hit from I think 1993. Hit the top 10 or the top 20 in about 20 different countries. I think that qualifies as a pretty big hit. Before we get into the weeds here, I just want to ask you if you like content like this, I'd sure appreciate it if you'd give me a like and subscribe to my channel. And, of course, click the bell if you want to get notifications when new content like this comes out. Really helps me rise up in the search rankings, and I appreciate your help. Okay, enough of that housekeeping. So, if you are not familiar with these little song demonstrations, these are not note-for-note tutorials. What I am doing here is showing you how you can use my process, which I call my method is the Piano Man approach. And I have a 5-step song learning formula that I actually call the G.L.I.D.E formula, and I walk you through how with knowing some simple tools like your basic chords and a few very simple rhythm patterns and some very, very simple improv techniques, you can learn just about any song in just a matter of a few minutes, and you can watch it come together very, very quickly. And it gives you the basis to then add all kinds of layers of nuance as you learn more and more tricks. So that's what these are about, and we're going to get started right now. So let me bring up my visual aid here for the G.L.I.D.E formula. It's 5 steps, as I mentioned, and it starts out with you get the chords, you move on to listening to the song, then you identify the feel, then you drill it down, and then you enhance with improv and signatures. Okay? And that way, when you follow those things in order, you glide right through to a full song. So let's take them one at a time. First, you can just go to a Google search and click, type in the name of your song that you're looking for. In this case, Jessie, Josh, and then maybe the artist, Jessie, Josh Kadison, or Joshua Kadison. And then just type in the word chords. And when you do that, you're going to see a number of options pop up. And probably the first one in most cases is going to be ultimateguitartabs.com. They do a pretty good job. Every once in a while you'll see an error here and there, but by and large it's a remarkable free resource to get lyrics and chords for songs. So it's a great place to start. The next thing you need to do is listen to the song. So luckily we also have a lot of free options for that as well. You can look it up on YouTube. You can also look it up on Spotify, or you can look it up on Pandora or Amazon Music Prime. A lot of different places are going to have this, and you can search for it and have a listen. Now, why are we listening to the song? Because once you have the chords and the lyrics in front of you, you have to listen to the song so that you can test out what the essential feel is. So this is where we're going to start our lesson now. Now, when we listen to this song, you have four essential feels. And they look like this. There's the basic feel. And there's the syncopated feel, or what I like to call the heartbeat feel. And your left hand goes. That's why I call it the heartbeat. Thump, 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 thump. Okay? Then there's the country feel. And there's the waltz feel. We can rule out the waltz feel right away because this song is clearly in like 4/4 time. So we're not counting in 3. It's not 3/4. It's not 6/8. It's nothing like that. So we know it's not going to be a waltz pattern. We know that we're either dealing with the basic, the heartbeat, or the country. My guess is it's not the country. Let's try it out. Jessie, paint your picture about how it's gonna be. See, that makes me laugh. That's definitely not what we're looking for. We rule that one out. Now let's try the basic feel. Jessie, paint your picture about how it's gonna be. And see, what you can do is while you're listening to the song, you can actually try these rhythm patterns out along with the recording. I can't do that here on this video because I don't have the copyright license to play that song over the top of play their master recording over, but you can do that and see which one lines up. It's a little choppy to do it this way. Jessie, paint your picture about how it's gonna be. It's okay, but I don't think we've found the sweet spot yet. Let's try the heartbeat rhythm, okay? So 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we're on to something here. So, Jessie, paint your picture about how it's gonna be. By now, you should know better. Your dreams are rubber free. Wow, I think we really found the sweet spot there. And that's how this generally will work, is that one of these 4 is going to stick out like a sore thumb as the one that matches the song. Sometimes you'll be in a shade of gray where more than one can work and you get to pick the one that sounds best to you, but generally speaking, you're going to find one that clearly matches it better than the others. Now, that doesn't mean that you're never going to make any alterations to that essential, just sort of stripped down, simple version, but it's a good place to start. So, we've now done step 1, we got the chords. Step 2, we listened to the song. Step 3, we've now identified the feels. So step 4 is drill it down. What do we mean by that? Well, this is where you take that chord, the chords that you found online, and it's really important now that we get the chords under our hands. You want to make sure that you're comfortable with that chord progression. So you want to play it simple. You don't want to do anything special to it. You just want to get through the song and you want to get comfortable with the chord progression as it's written with that simple feel. So in this case, it starts out like G, D over F sharp, A minor, C, G, D over F sharp, A minor, C. I'm not going to talk a lot about the pedal in this particular video, but I just want to point out I'm pretty much what I'm doing here is I've got the pedal down. This is the sustain pedal, the one to the far right. Excuse me. And I keep it down, and every time I'm about to change chords, I let up and come right back down. Okay? So you want to keep reverb going. That creates reverberation. You want to keep reverb happening pretty much all the time, but you don't want these chords bleeding into each other. So you let up and come right back down when you're swapping to a new chord. So when you get into the verse, it's G, A minor, C, G, G, A minor, C, G. Now, if this doesn't make sense to you, don't worry, because in very, very short order, you can learn your major chords, and just looking at the letter G, you'll know to play those notes. This is not hard to do. You can learn more about that by visiting thepianomanapproach.com. I've got some free material there that will help make some of that make more sense if you were unfamiliar with that. Some of you already learned how to read chords in your traditional piano lessons that you've taken, and you just never knew what to do with them. So hopefully this will give you a little bit of guidance on that as well. So G, A minor, C, D. Then it goes E minor, D, C, E minor, D, C, E minor, D, C, C, D, C, D, C, D, then G. We're into the chorus there. G, picture, C, G, B. So that's where he says, Jessie, paint your picture about how it's gonna be. C, G, C, D, E minor, D over F sharp, and then G. So I don't want to go through the whole song, but that's pretty much the gist of what's happening. And so you want to make sure that you can play it in that very simple format, just that rhythm pattern, without any special frills or anything from beginning to end. And those of you who want to play melody in the right hand as opposed to sing, don't worry, we're going to get to that. But this is still an important part of that process. So once you are comfortable with that and you're not making mistakes, getting from the beginning to the end of the song, jumping through that chord progression, now you're ready for step 5, which is enhance. Enhance with improv and signatures. So the first and most simple thing to do is to start adding some pretty simple improv stuff that you can do right on the chord that you're already playing, okay? And why I like to do that is that I'm essentially kind of a lazy player, and I think it served me pretty well. I don't like moving my hand all over the piano if I don't have to. So I like to get most of my improving in right where I'm already at. So you're on this G chord or this C chord, okay? One of my favorite things to do is what I call the toggle technique. What is the toggle technique? Well, so we're already playing this chord. I like to play the top part of the chord with 2 fingers, or could be 3 fingers if you're playing a big full octave chord like this. Does not matter, but top part of the chord, and then I toggle to the thumb and back up. So watch how I can create a variation on my rhythm pattern. My left hand stays the same, but I can give a little bit different flavor to that rhythm pattern by just adding some toggles. See how nice that is? And it's like it just gives it a little bit of depth. It gives it a little bit of 3-dimensionalism about it, you know, instead of just a plain 2-dimensional canvas. Suddenly starts to come to life a little bit. And the thing is, you don't have to just pick a toggle and stick with it. You could do the whole song like this. The idea is that you can make the choice in the moment. You can be creative in the moment, and the essence of the song is always there. It's never going to sound so different that suddenly it doesn't sound like the song, because it's anchored with this rhythmic integrity that you're creating with your left hand, with that rhythm pattern. That is your drum kit and your bass guitar, and it's holding it together so that the song stays the song, but you get to add layers of nuance, layers of depth and flavor, and you get to make that choice in the moment while you're playing, which is fun because the song stays alive for you, as opposed to one of my chief complaints about playing from sheet music, aside from the fact of how long it takes to get good at reading music. My biggest complaint is that by the time you've finished learning the song, you've chewed all the flavor out of the gum. You know, there's nothing left to do with it because you're going to play it the same way every single time. But with this, it's always a little bit different, and it's always a spontaneous experience. So the same song that you've played for years and years and years continues to have life, continues to satisfy you, continues to be a creative, vital experience for you as a musician, because you're never doing it exactly the same way, even though it's always anchored and rooted in essentially the same thing. And that is so exciting to me. And also, this is a transferable skill, so that if you needed to play it in the key of F, and you simply learn how to transpose chords down, and that would be not too hard to do, and suddenly you can do the same thing in a different key, whereas that's a much bigger difficult situation to work out when you're dealing with something that's been notated out on a page. So anyway, the idea behind it is you don't have to pick one and stick with it all the way through. You can just put in as much as you want. Jessie paints a picture about how how it's gonna be. Okay, so what's another thing you can do? Another thing you can do is I don't just call it this, it's called an arpeggio. Arpeggio is when you take the notes of your chord and you play them individually, either up or down in sequence. And frankly, it could be any combination. You could just do some kind of weird finger pattern. It doesn't matter. It's arpeggiating, and that's another thing that you can throw in here and there to add a little nuance. Jessie, paint your picture about how it's gonna be. See how that continues to add a little bit more layer. This is kind of like if you're painting on a canvas, you put your mountains in the back and then you draw in trees that are way, way in the background, and you keep moving forward on the canvas, and it just keeps making this thing more and more three-dimensional. It gives you depth, gives you that illusion of depth, and that's what this does. It just adds depth to what you're playing. Another one of my very favorite simple ones is what I call a flutter, which is basically an arpeggio, except it's done really fast, and it's done to just sort of work your way into some count. So it could be like count 1, count 2, count 3, count 4. And I'll give you an example. Jessie, paint your picture about how it's gonna be. See how I just arpeggiated up really fast? You can do that, and there are certain spots where that's really, really effective. Like at the end of the chorus, he'll go, Jessie, paint your picture about how it's gonna be. And at the end, he says, Jessie, you can always sell any dream to me. Yeah, Jessie, you can always sell. And then it kind of just stops there for a second, just pauses. Any dream to me, and then picks back up with the rhythm, right? Well, leading into that chord is a great time for one of these little flutters. Jessie, you can always sell any dream to me. Okay, now, what I love about this is that we haven't done any really, really complicated tools, but just with the rhythm pattern alone and the chord progression and just some of the very, very simple improv that you do on just the chord, you had a really good sounding piano part already. Like, even if you never did anything else to it, this is a really good sounding piano part already. And so now you can do all kinds of stuff. You can add in, and I'm not going to go into it in this video, all the mechanics of it, but you can throw in stuff like once you become familiar with a major scale, you can throw in some notes from a major scale and use some of these same techniques, but now you have more notes to work with. And by the way, when I say get familiar with a major scale, I don't mean get good at playing a major scale. I mean understand what notes are in a major scale so that you can draw from them. You're still mostly just playing from the chord you're already on. It's just that instead of limiting yourself to just the 3 notes that make up the chord, you're adding in this one and this one and this one at certain times. But because you've found that rhythm in the left hand, it anchors it and it keeps it sounding like a song and not just randomness. And that's what's so special about it. Okay, now let's talk about, and by the way, like I say, you can go check out at pianomanapproach.com. I've got a lot more explanation about these components. You can get a lot of free information there. It's so I would encourage you to go check that out if this is creating curiosity in your mind. But what I also love is that now that we've gotten this far, if you don't want to sing or accompany a singer, we can now use another process to add in the melody. Now, I don't have a cool visual aid for it yet, but I call that process flow. First, we glide into learning the song. Now we flow into putting the melody in. So flow, what does it stand for? F, find the melody. L, lay it into the rhythm pattern. O, ornament, which is going to be our way of enhancing that. And then W actually stands for woohoo, well done, because I always like to end with a pat on the back for a job well done. So let's take a look at this. The first thing you want to do is find the melody. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. One, if you're someone who already knows how to read music on a page, which I'm not really great at, but some people are good at it, and they've already had a lot of training in that way, then you might be able to find sheet music or a fake book or something like that where there's a melody written out, and that would be a really good low-hanging fruit for you to just pull the melody off of that. The next thing that you might be able to do is you might very well find a YouTube tutorial out there where somebody's taught the melody. Another way that's really pretty effective is that you can just drill yourself. You can learn how to pick out melodies by ear. And I don't let the whole idea of playing by ear freak you out, okay? Because if you can tell that this note and this note are not the same pitch, then you have what you need to be able to pick melodies out. It's just a matter of learning a process for that and working on it a little bit and starting to listen with a little more intention. And I don't have time to get into that in this particular video, but we do touch on it in the Piano Man approach. So first you find the melody, whether it's from your ear or from some material out there. The next thing you do is you lay that into the rhythm pattern. So now that you have really gotten solid with this accompaniment stuff, you still need to learn the accompaniment version first, but now your left hand's good and solid on the rhythm pattern you're going to be working with. So now we just take that melody that you found and we very simply, we strip it down to simple again. Now, why do we do that? Well, for one thing, you want to get the melody really, really under your hand, just like you wanted to get the chord progression under your hand. You don't want to be dedicating brain power. When you start adding in ornamentation at any step, and that's why, step 5, the final step of the G.L.I.D E formula is the enhancement. The final step of this one's the ornamentation. Once you start doing that, you don't want your brain power dedicated to something like, oh, where's the melody going again? Because if you're doing that, you are not ready to actually add anything to that melody. So you want to get it good and under your fingers so that you can focus on the fun stuff you're going to do around it. So now the first thing we ornament is the space around the melody. See how I kind of went back to the rhythm pattern there? It's like I had a little gap. And I did a little toggle on that C chord. Whoops. Okay? So you can start adding in stuff in the spaces, in the gaps in the melody, because the melody is going to have little gaps in it from time to time. So start filling those spaces. It doesn't have to be with really complicated stuff. You can just sort of return to the rhythm pattern. Do very, very simple toggles, arpeggios, that kind of thing. Okay? So the next thing you ornament is the melody itself. So how do we do that? Well, now that you're good and familiar with it and it's kind of under your finger, you start adding notes from the chord that you're on along with the melody just to thicken it up a little bit. Now, you don't have to think too complicated about it. You just need to pick a note or two from that chord, play it, and let it ring, which, because you've got your pedal down, it will ring as long as you're on that chord, and then you're going to be lifting back up as you switch to another chord, and it thickens it out. So see how I'm just following that. I'm on a G chord. So I just kind of let that part of the chord just kind of play and let it ring. Then I'm on a C chord, come down on the full C chord. And I'm just kind of letting the notes of it ring while I play that melody. Just press down and let it ring because of the pedal. Then you can also find what I like to call satisfying inversion or satisfying intervals. And an interval is simply a space between two notes. So one that's good is a third. Why do they call it a third? Well, 1, 2, 3. See what I mean? 1, 2, 3, third. Or a sixth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can kind of follow it like harmony. Okay? And again, it's not always an exact science, but it's a place to start. And the nice thing about this is that because you learn your chords, you start to understand what notes fit into a chord. And so you can always, if something sounds a little funky to you, you can look and say, oh, well, it's because I'm playing this note and it doesn't really fit that chord. And then make an adjustment. So it's nice because this kind of starts training your ear, even if you've never thought of yourself as having a good ear. This starts to train it and make your ear better without you even realizing that that's what it's doing. So it's really good stuff. And so what I'm trying to explain is that this process for a total beginner can get them to a very satisfying rendering of the song pretty darn quickly. And it may be very simple, but for the total beginner, this is pretty fun to be able to sit down and go. You know, because suddenly you're inside the song. You're not just outside of it listening. You're inside of it making it. And that is a rush that stays with you forever. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I'm still like a kid in a candy store on Christmas morning when I pick up a new song. I mean, just saying that actually gave me goosebumps. So it's really fun. But for a more advanced player, as you learn these tools and then also some of the other more advanced techniques that I have available for more advanced players, it's not a far cry. It's the exact same process that takes you to doing things like this. And so I've been using this process for a very long time. This is the exact process that I use every time I learn a new song, and it gets you through 80% of the work very, very quickly. And then you have all the fun in the world, all the time, the rest of your life, and just a tremendous amount of fun to just kind of keep coming up with new and interesting things to ornament and enhance it with. And it's great, great, great fun to do it, which, by the way, is what we're looking for out of all of this. I mean, the only reason you wanted to play in the first place is because of how you thought it would make you feel. You thought it would feel good to do it, and it does. But you've got to have some kind of a process that you can follow. And it takes so long to learn how to read music, and it does not take that long to learn how to identify chords. So I think this is a great way to start your piano journey if you have never played before. And I think it's a great way to enhance and a great way to further explore the piano if you have had formal training and you've got the fundamentals down. It's just kind of a win-win. So if you're interested in this, please head over to the pianomanapproach.com. Take a look at my free materials and just learn a little more about the process and the tools that are involved. But I'm very proud of it, and it's something that I've been using to great effect as a performer for many, many years. But more than anything, it's just been an endless source of fun and joy for me, and that's really what it's all about. And so I'm happy that I have the opportunity to share it with so many people around the world now. Anyway, I won't keep you much longer, but I just wanted to share this with you, and I'll be back with more of these. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll be coming back with more, and feel free to leave comments about other songs you might like to see broken down in this way. And remember, if you're not having fun when you're making music, you're doing it wrong. And I will see you on the next one, guys. Thank you so very much.